Hey guys, in today's video we will be doing another tropical update because once again we're going to be talking about Invest 98L, and as you can see, so far today the NHC has a 20% chance of it forming within the next 2 days, 40% chance of it forming within the next 5 days. So, the chances are slowly increasing for the system to form. It says an area of low pressure located inland over northeastern Georgia is producing a large area of showers and heavy rain over portions of the southeastern U.S. The low is expected to move generally northeastward toward the coast of the Carolinas and the mid-Atlantic states, and some development of the system is possible later this week if it moves over water. Regardless of development, the low is forecast to produce locally heavy rainfall that could cause flash flooding across portions of the southeastern United States during the next couple of days. So if we go to the 5-day graphical outlook, you can see it will generally, honestly, I think it will generally head from here. Now it's kind of getting into South Carolina, moving to South Carolina. It will generally more just move to the east, generally move more towards the east, towards the coast, and then most likely will go off the coast of southern North Carolina. You can see this is the area of where the NHC thinks it will develop, and you can see once it gets over here, and most likely it will go over water, it will then start to head more northward right along the east coast and up towards the northeast and New England areas. So, we're going to have to keep watching this over the next day or two, and watch it progress towards the coast, and then we'll really have to watch it and see what it does once it's potentially over the water by, most likely it'll be over the water most likely by Thursday. Once it's over the water by Thursday, we'll have to see what it does. But I really do think that it's pretty much a high likelihood that this does become our sixth named system for the hurricane season thus far. And if we go to the Wikipedia page, I'm going to show this a little earlier on in the video before we go into just looking at the models for 98L. I wanted to show the Wikipedia page for this year's Atlantic hurricane season of 2020. You can see we've already had a total of 5 named storms. We had Arthur, Bertha, Cristobal, Dolly, and now Edward that just dissipated just a day or two ago. And let's see, CSU, the big thing that I want to show you guys is that CSU, Colorado State University, has put out their new Atlantic hurricane season forecast, 2020 Atlantic hurricane season forecast today. It just came out around an hour ago. And they're now calling for 20 named storms, 9 hurricanes, and 4 major hurricanes. If we compare that to their last forecast back on June 4th, they've only upped their total amount of named storms by 1. Otherwise, their forecasted total amount of hurricanes and major hurricanes has stayed the same. But generally, the Colorado State University has been really increasing their forecast ever since they started putting their forecasts out for this year's hurricane season back on April 2nd. So, that's a pretty huge increase from their very first forecast, of course. And my official forecast is not too far off from theirs, really. We're currently CSU and my forecast, we're both calling for a total amount of 20 named storms. I'm calling for 11 hurricanes and 7 major hurricanes, so they're predicting a slightly less amount of hurricanes and major hurricanes forming, but we'll have to see, especially once we of course get towards the end of July and getting into the peak of the season through August and September. So we've gone through Edward now. Edward dissipated just yesterday. And it was really the most threat it had was to landmass was Bermuda, but it only caused minimal damage, so it wasn't really that much of a threat. It was mostly a fish storm. Dolly, of course, was also a fish storm mainly. Of course, Arthur, Bertha, and Cristobal all were not fish storms at all, as we all remember. So yeah, this is really what I wanted to show you guys on this page for right now. So now let's move on to tropical tidbits, and let's take a look at the sea surface temperatures. Gotta let it load. I don't know why it takes so long to load, but we'll look at the sea surface temperatures at Enzo region right now. Generally, the Enzo region is still pretty much still hovering right around the perfectly neutral line. Right now it's at positive 0.026. So it's been surprisingly getting getting a lot warmer and just getting more positive now. So we'll have to see if that'll change at all soon, because going to the peak of the season, we really want this to be decreased a good bit, so we have a better likelihood of getting more enhanced amounts of tropical activity. If we look at the Central Pacific, no, I want to look at the Tropical Pacific. No, not tropical. Fuck. Sorry. Go to Eastern Pacific. It's generally, as you can see by the world, really, you can see it's generally cooler than average from the very eastern parts towards South America's coast through getting towards the Central Pacific, but it kind of warms up a bit more around here. So, again, that's why we're kind of more towards neutral ENSO and not really in a La Nina or El Nino yet. There's no chance that there will be an El Nino at all forming at any point this year. So, we'll just have to, for fall and winter, we'll just have to see whether or not it'll be continue to be in neutral or it'll change to some kind of La Nina. But the Atlantic, the sea surface temperatures in the Atlantic, you can see the Gulf, Caribbean, subtropics around Florida, Bermuda, they're all getting very, very warm, getting even towards 90 degrees Fahrenheit, maybe even some parts a little warmer than 90 degrees Fahrenheit even. So, and even the East Coast is surprisingly a lot warmer even than we thought it would be. And of course, this is the Mid-Atlantic and Southeast coastline is, of course, the warmest along the East Coast just because of that Gulf Stream enhancement, and where temperatures are also around 80 degrees Fahrenheit. And then for the northern Mid-Atlantic and New England, Northeast coast, it's more towards, around 70 to 80 degrees. This is actually going to be a huge thing we're going to have to watch for 98L if it does end up going over the water by Thursday. We'll have to see what that does as it moves north, because really even after it leaves this kind of enhanced Gulf Stream warm waters, the waters up here for the coastal Northeast, Mid-Atlantic, and very southern New England states. It's still generally pretty warm, so it could still kind of sustain tropical activity a good bit, especially a good bit more than we would have thought it would or would typically. Yeah. So now let's just move on to showing you the what the models are thinking for 98L. So we're looking at the GFS model right now, and you can see 98L is pretty much right here. The center of it's really right here towards the Georgia-South Carolina border. And actually, real quick, I want to show you the satellite imagery for 98L. Let's get this to load, and come on. Man, this thing is slow today. We gotta really wait for it. I mean, you can see from what it is loading, the convection is pretty decent still, and it does still have that very good spin. So it's still really maintaining itself even though it's over land. You can see the center is pretty much like right here. Pretty much it's now entering South Carolina by this point, it seems. And really by this point you can see it's generally heading more in the east direction, getting closer and closer to the coastline. So yeah, all right, so now let's look at what the models are showing. Again, we'll go back and I'll show you what the GFS is showing first, and then I'll show you what the CMC is showing, and then what the Euro is showing. Man, I apologize. My Wi-Fi connection is so bad today. It's just so slow. But yeah, let's take a look at this. You can see there's 98L right here. And it goes off the coast and then goes up the coast. Let's actually zoom in now to the northeast U.S. And you can see, honestly, the GFS is showing in more towards right over water, right, but like literally right along the coast. So it does, according to the GFS, still kind of does have a chance to become a tropical system. In all honesty, but again, it's gonna either way. It looks like it's really just gonna impact the coastal areas of the Mid Atlantic and Northeast, and especially the southern New England coast, especially with heavy rain and pretty decently strong winds as well. In fact, let's zoom back out, and I'll show you what it's showing for the winds and the vorticity. Let's see, we'll go here, move this out in time, and you can see it has pretty decently strong winds getting up towards around 30 knots even for some areas, especially along the southern New England coast. Go to the 10-meter winds, and you can see that, that's just really going to be enhancing the winds and rain. I'll show you the vorticity that the GFS is thinking what its vorticity will be like. And you can see it generally forms a pretty decent circulation of vorticity as it moves north towards coastal New England along the northeast mid-Atlantic coast. So, the models are really still showing it to be pretty, it's showing it to wrap up a good bit and kind of form a good bit. If I go back to the precipitation and we zoom into the northeast U.S., I do want to say the low pressure center does have the model GFS is showing it getting down towards like 1,005 to 1,007 millibars. So it's definitely low enough to warrant being maybe a weak tropical storm even. So this could honestly be Fay. We just gotta wait and see over the next day or two and really kind of see what the most ironed out forecast will be. But so that's what the GFS is saying. The CMC now. Let's zoom back out to the eastern U.S. Bring this back. All right, let's bring this out, and you can see the CMC is also bringing it off the coast of Carolinas and then north, right through New Jersey, New York City, Connecticut, Rhode Island. And if we zoom into the northeast U.S., you can see that here. Pretty heavy rains coming in through New Jersey, New York City, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and even Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine will get some decently heavy rain from its remnants, most likely by that point. But let's. I really want to show you actually what the winds look like for northeast New England as the system moves up. You can see the winds get pretty strong, especially for coastlines of Long Island, Connecticut, even Rhode Island, getting up towards, around 25 to 30 knots, even maybe some areas between 30 to 34 knots, or actually more like 34 to 40 knots. So, it's going to be a pretty windy, rainy system for the coast, especially the coastal areas. More inland, it'll be a little light. Well, actually, not too much lighter. It'll still be pretty windy and rainy as well there. I'll show you what the vorticity looks like for the system as it goes up towards the coast. You can see it's also really kind of agreeing with the GFS, showing some decent vorticity with it as it heads north and goes through New Jersey, New York City, Connecticut. So again, what's incredible about this, by the way, especially, I didn't even move it down, sorry. So that's the vorticity, showing it, agreeing with the GFS again, by the way, with the decently tight vorticity forming for it to at least become a weak tropical storm. And again, with the winds, it's showing some pretty strong winds for coastal Northeast, especially coastal New England, and even going into northern New England, some pretty strong winds. You can see actually very eastern Maine and the New Brunswick will get pretty strong winds as it starts to move off and gets really more connected with this larger system. They'll get a lot more enhanced winds, but again, for all of New England especially, it looks like it will be a pretty windy and rainy system. So there's that. And just what's interesting about this is that this will potentially be New England's first really pretty heavily impactful tropical system since Hurricane Sandy back in 2012. So it's almost been 8 years since New England has felt a pretty much a direct impact really by a tropical system. So that's I mean it's good and bad news for whoever is looking at it, whoever is wanting to judge it. But this will most likely be named Fay. In all honesty, and plus the F-name storms for the Atlantic hurricane season list, a bunch of F-name storms are known for making landfall on the East Coast somewhere. We had like Flossie, we had Floyd, so this will be another one. Let's look at the Euro model now. I'll show you what the Euro is showing for this system for what right now is Invest 98L. We'll see. At one point in time, maybe it will become Fay. Bring this back. Show you the precipitation. All right. So there it is right now. Pretty much getting into South Carolina now. And you can see there's that low pressure center going off the South Carolina, North Carolina coast and then heading northward. 1,008, 1,006 millibars, even 1,004, 1,003 even. The Euro is surprisingly showing it kind of curving a little bit more towards the north-northeast right before it kind of like really does its main impacts towards New England, and then kind of skirts the actual center of the low. Will kind of go over the Cape of Massachusetts, and then will kind of dissipate as it's going towards Maine and into Canada. But it's still generally kind of agreeing with the CMC and GFS for the most part. I think it's really the GFS and CMC are really the ones right now that are really showing what will most likely happen. So I think the Euro will start to kind of more align with it, with those models as we go into tomorrow and Thursday. I'll show you now what the Euro is showing for its winds. All right. So let's bring this farther out. See, there's that center right now, and then it'll go off into the Atlantic, just off the coast. You can see the winds, showing, 35 to 40 knot winds. So some pretty decently strong winds, reaching towards 40 knots. So it's pretty good, showing a pretty strong system, getting towards weak tropical storm status. So again, their models are really agreeing upon that it does have a pretty decent shot at trying to become a named weak tropical storm right before it impacts coastal New England especially, and of course also has some impacts for the coastal northeast mid-Atlantic as well. So let's show you. I'll show you kind of what the forecast is for, let's say, New York City for this system. I'll show you 10-day weather forecast from the Weather Channel that is showing for New York City. You can see it's really showing it's starting towards Friday, getting into Saturday. Thursday. It's really Thursday night, especially going to Friday, and then kind of ending towards Saturday. You can see Thursday night, partly cloudy, low of 74, followed then in the evening, followed by scattered thunderstorms after midnight. And then Friday, thunderstorms, potential for heavy rainfall. And then cloudy with showers, potential for heavy rainfall as well Friday night. And then Saturday, it all kind of starts to come to an end with just more scattered thunderstorms. And then it'll kind of diminish as we go into Sunday and end. So, it looks like this weekend will be most likely generally a very soggy weekend for the New York City tri-state area, coastal New England. Probably really all of New England is looking for it to be a pretty soggy weekend in general. But especially if you live around like the New York City tri-state area, coastal Connecticut, coastal Rhode Island, Long Island, the rain will generally stick around for most of the weekend, especially starting towards Friday. Going through Saturday and then ending towards Sunday, really trying to end towards Sunday. So that's really it for today's video, guys. I really hope you enjoyed. I will be, again, making more videos on 98L going through the rest of the week, so please stay tuned for that. Really hope you enjoyed again. Please like, comment, subscribe below, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.